and really proud of how our team competed in the tournament. We were right there against, a really elite level team, with a chance to win. And so, I'll just leave it there. I'm just really proud of our kids. I'm proud of how we competed and represented ourselves. I'm proud of the growth that we had, and looking forward to getting a little rest and starting this process all over again.
You talked about last week how the draw was going to end up, tough teams right out the gate. Even if you made it to the second round, you're going to end up playing Kentucky. In that game, it just seemed like Minnesota just ended up making a run in the sets where you were ahead most of the time. How did you see that?
Yeah, well, you guys hear me talk about all the time how critical serving is, and I'm telling you, it's once a year maybe you'll have a match where, like, you pick up that box score and you see that we out hit them, we out blocked them, we out dug them. When you do those three things, I would guess you win 98% of the time if you can out hit, out block, and out dig a team. And if you would have asked me if I thought it was possible for us to beat them in all three of those categories, I would have said not likely. So we did a lot of the things we needed to do, but at the end of the day, poor serving reared its ugly head. And, in our game, missing serves is like missing free throws. Like it's one of the easier parts of the game. The game stopped and slowed down, and it's a matter of execution and concentration and repetition. And at the end of the day, I talk to our team all the time about little things. And in the biggest moment, the little things were the difference in us advancing and not advancing.
With serving, though, it's kind of equates to tennis with the serve, doesn't it? You want to be on the edge and really put as much pressure on them as you can, or you can safety serve it, but you're kind of letting them get into their offense, right? Yeah,
well, I've corrected several people since we played, because I've had a lot of people say, if you guys hadn't missed so many serves, but in actuality, the missed serves weren't the issue. It was the lack of aces that were an issue. Like, we needed to push it because they were so physical, so athletic, and so good offensively that we had to be aggressive. We missed, there was a few more than but I was comfortable missing 14, 15 serves in that 4-set match. But you can't have one ace, and we just didn't execute enough, apply enough pressure in that piece of the game. It's something we talk about all the time, but man, we sure played well in a lot of other areas of the game. And it was this NCAA tournament. If you've watched the NCAA tournament, it's just been parity and close games, and a point here or there. And I just really am proud of how our team competed, and I thought we clearly belonged in that match. And would love to have extended it another day. Minnesota the very next night had Kentucky in a similar situation where they were, a point or two away from getting that to a fifth set. And that's just, we played at a high level this year. We grew to play at a high level. We didn't start the year at a high level. And any time our season ends with a conference championship and a conference tournament championship and an NCAA tournament berth, you can't be anything but proud. And when you get to the tournament, it's a lot about draw and luck and all these other things that go into it. And again, we competed, and I felt really good about how our team finished this season.
Coach, you talk about players who did well. Olivia Skidmore, awesome job in her first time there.
Yeah.
She's coming back. Izzy, just how excited are you to keep seeing their growth?
It's crazy. I'm usually so wiped out on this day, but I find myself already excited about the possibilities of what's to come. If you pick up that box score from the NCAA tournament, Faith Young hit, almost 400, I think, or close to 400 as a freshman middle. Olivia Skidmore, for a good majority of the match, was the best player on the floor, and had no fear. And I gave her a hug after the match and told her how proud I was of her, and that there's more to come. And the only thing she said back to me is, I can't wait. She's got growth ahead of her. She's going to be a special player, and there's a lot to be excited about. When you win championships and you're going to graduate and have to replace big time players, and 2 years ago, we had to replace Lauren Matthews. Last year, we had to replace Paige Briggs. This year, we're going to have to replace Kaylee Cox. But we found a way to do that, and I think when you look at the makeup of our roster right now, there's a lot to be excited about.
Now, even with that, I know you were excited about your incoming class, but then, like you say, Blues forcing is our report, right? But now your team is going to be relatively young. I guess Callie would be, Callie would be the upperclassman of the team of sorts. So, kind of talk about just the youngness of the team and the youth that's going to
Yeah, Callie Bauer and Abby Schaefer and Callahan Wiegand will be our 3 seniors, on that group, and which is hard to believe, with Abby. But when you look at offensive players, the most seasoned offensive player we will have coming back is Izzy Vanderweely. And that's crazy to think about because she's always been such a young kid and a project coming through. But the talent level, is pretty special moving forward. We have a real unique situation in that we're going to have 4 newcomers start with us in the spring. We have 4 freshmen coming in. 3 of those freshmen are actually graduating early and will start training with us in January. And then we have a transfer kid that will be will be starting with us in the spring as well. And so we're going to have 12 players on our spring roster, which is a big number. And there's a lot of things we can kind of get ahead on by having them in here. And, the good part is coming up for me. You hear me talk about that all the time. But the fun part, the growth part. And I'm going to take a long winter's nap here for a couple weeks and try to heal and rest. But it's an exciting time here. The future has been laid for us to do great things moving forward. And I like our talent level coming back. And so it's still, there's a lot of excitement in the air, even at the end of a season for the possibilities of what's to come.
Just thinking about the NCAA transfer portal for football, man. Just wondering, kind of with the growth of your sport and the emphasis with a lot of these Power 4 teams, how hard is it to retain your roster going forward? Are you guys well positioned to do that?
I don't know that any coach is ever going to tell you that they're well positioned, that they are sleep great. I can tell you I feel really strongly about the group of kids we have in our locker room. I feel very strongly about the culture we have. I feel like we're in a position to retain kids. We've got to do more in the NIL space. That's just the reality. But the NIL part of it is not the only selling point at Western Kentucky in the sport of women's volleyball. We've got a really close connected group. But this landscape of college athletics is changing so rapidly. I think any coach that sits in a press conference and tells you how confident and comfortable they feel is a little bit naive, just because of how rapidly things are changing and how quickly dollar amounts in NIL are exploding and all of those kinds of things. And so there are things that we're aware of constantly. But at the forefront still of what our program is about, it's still always going to be about culture. It's going to be about player development. You look at a kid like Kaylee Cox. Again, the NIL space is real, and we have to be competitive in it and all of those kinds of things. But there's more to it when you choose to come here. Kaylee Cox came here after her sophomore year, and I think her career high was a .204 hitting percentage at Missouri. And, Kaylee may have been able to go somewhere else and get a little bit more money in NIL, but where would she be today in that grand scheme of things? Maybe a few more dollars in her pocket, but what's her future look like? And, Kaylee came here and developed to the point where she's now getting her reward. She came here and grew for 2 years, turned into an All-American, Player of the Year in our league, hit 320-something, will be an All-American again this year, and just got drafted and now has a professional future ahead of her. And so, there's a lot of things that go into this. And the ability to come here and there's a proven track record that if you come here and play, you get better, if you're willing to work. And to me, that's as big a selling point as all the other parts, you know, that are a part of college athletics these days.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, you know, when it comes to volleyball, you know, it's levels, right? You got, you know, the big powerful teams and then the mid-major teams, right? But, you know, Western's always been a superior team and being able to play against the big, you know, power 4 or 5 teams, you know. How do you all get to that next step of being able to get past some of those teams that are at the top?
Well, I can only tell you it's getting more and more difficult because of the landscape of college athletics. It's getting more and more difficult. You know, here's another year where, you know, we're getting votes for the top 25 and we're in the NCAA tournament. Like, we continue to outkick our coverage a little bit, if you will, in terms of what we're able to accomplish here in this program. And we'll continue to do that. But the reality is, just like in other sports, volleyball, there's always like a little lag to our sport, if you will. What you see happening in football and basketball and all that, if you wait a couple years, it'll start being the case in volleyball. And, you know, the NIL space, some of the numbers you hear in the NIL space in the sport of football and basketball are unthinkable numbers, you know, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, if you would have said someday a kid will be making, you know, X number of dollars to play a college football season, you would have laughed. And now it's very much a reality. And as you track this thing through volleyball, you know, now some of the numbers that are being thrown out in volleyball are unthinkable. And the reality is, if you know, we're never going to be at the front end. I don't think people are going to come here to get, you know, the largest NIL deal in the NCAA, but at the same time, we've got to understand that we have to stay competitive in all phases. Our staff has to stay competitive, our level of recruiting has to stay competitive, our facilities have to stay competitive, and you cannot stick your head in the sand and not realize that this NIL space is a real part of it right now. And so it's still ever changing, and we're trying to figure out the best way to maximize it, but we've got to be competitive in that regard. And that's just, you know, every university is having to make decisions about, you know, at what level they want to be competitive, you know, and what sports they want to be competitive. And, you know, these are all things that are questions that are being answered every single day. And, you know, the good thing about Western Kentucky volleyball is we have proven we can compete nationally. That is not a dream. That is not a sales pitch when we're talking to people about investing in our program. It's being done. It's been done. But we have to understand that it can't continue to be done without evolving and keeping up in all aspects of what college athletics is. And so it is an exhausting thing. And way too many quality coaches are finding other things to do with their lives because it's getting further and further away from coaching. And so we'll deal with it. We'll handle it. We'll manage all those parts of it. But at the core of it, it'll still be about me jumping in that gym with those kids and developing the next group.
Just jumping back to Kaylee a little bit and her development over the years here. What is it that you initially saw in her that you thought she could be what she could be?
Yeah, two things. She had the physical tools, but this is the unique part. And you talk about portal kids and stuff like that. And this is what I would wish we could get every kid to do. We got Kaylee to come take a look. Kaylee listened. They're getting thrown these dollar amounts and these Power Fours, this and all that. And I was able to get on a call with her and get her to come listen. And when she came on her visit, for the first time in my entire coaching career, a kid came for a visit and we never even looked at campus. When she got to campus, I decided she wasn't going to come here because she thought Cherry Hall was pretty. Okay, and so when she got here, she and I sat down in my office and pulled up film. And I talked about what I saw in her game. And her visit was either going to be the shortest, worst visit of all time or the best visit of all time, because I was either going to offend her, okay? But I sat down and said, look, you're a really good player, but I think if you do this, this, and this, and let me show you why. And we sat and watched film together, and I recall being late for our lunch as part of our visit because we couldn't get out of there because she was a student of the game and she just wanted to get better. And so where every other visit maybe was about, campus tours and NIL and all those our visit was just about this game and here's what I see and I think you can get better. And so many kids these days would be offended by that conversation, and she was intrigued by it. And so when she said, that's where I want to go play, I knew something special was about to happen with her because, she had the physical tools. She just needed to grow her game. And the only way, it takes more than a coach that knows what he's doing. It takes a kid that wants to hear it, wants to be pushed, wants to be trained. And so we're always looking for that next one that has that in their heart, that values growing and learning and being pushed and being a part of a great culture more than they value, how much in terms of NIL and all that kind of stuff. And man, when we can find those kids, I think it's proven to be a win-win. Kaylee did some really special things for Western Kentucky volleyball, but I think Western Kentucky volleyball did some pretty special things for Kaylee Cox too. And that's the mix we're looking for.
Kaylee ends up being like a six rotation player. That's what I was looking up trying to get my six rotation player. Olivia seems to be gradually getting into that role. Is that what you kind of look for out when you're looking for your outside?
Yeah, I mean, you're just looking for kids that are talented, that are open to growth, and you don't overwhelm them all at once. Olivia's a good example. Faith Young's a good example. There's plenty of things that those kids have the ability to do. You can't throw it all in there at once. Kaylee Cox was not a primary passer a year ago, if you remember. She played 6 rotations, but she didn't pass in serve receive, and this year she was maybe our best passer in serve receive. And so, those are all part of the growth process, and Olivia certainly has upside to her game. Faith Young has upside to her game, and we said the same thing about Izzy Vanderwheely a year ago, and look how much her game grew. And that's one of the really exciting things about getting some of these incoming freshmen in here early in the spring is we'll have time to grow them more so than a normal freshman throughout the spring season.
I guess one last question. Obviously, this season's been crazy. All the outside stuff that's happening. You just kind of sum it up all together. Just, from beginning to end, how the season was.
It's hard to sum up. But the thing that always comes to mind when I get asked that question is just content. Like I'm content with everything this season was. I'm content with the growth from beginning to end. I'm content with the way we handled adversity, the way we bounced back in terms of individually and team-wise, and the growth from beginning to end, and the work that our staff did. I think this season put WKU volleyball culture to the test, and I think it passed with flying colors. And so, it's just rewarding. Rewarding is a good word, because, as you know, I'm glad it ended in a championship. I'm glad it ended in an NCAA tournament for our players, but that's not my measuring stick. When I look at who Kaylee Cox was from beginning to end, and what Madison Chitty was from beginning to end, and what our team collectively was from beginning to end, and the growth of our staff from beginning to end, man, that's the part that you do this for. And it's all about that process every day of being connected and getting better. And so now I'm ready to sit back and watch our winter sports take that journey. Watch Hank and our men's basketball team. Every time I've watched them play, they're a better version of themselves every time they take the court. And, watching Greg Collins work through his rotations and figure out who his team is, and watching those kids doing things that they didn't do a year ago, man, that's the good stuff if you're a coach. And so I'm very much looking forward to being in the stands and watching those teams take the same journey throughout the winter and the spring, and be something in March that I think all Topper fans can be proud of too.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, all year. Appreciate you.